Every year, this time of year in December, we get predictions for next year in a variety of industries, including real estate. And the real estate predictions really are no more than a continuation of the year-long propaganda. I want to call it the good, the bad, the ugly. Some of the predictions are good, some of them are bad, and some are really ugly. Which is which? We'll get into that. I'm Bill Gross. Welcome to my real estate market update. I do this every week, and we put it out on Monday morning via email and put it on YouTube and other social media. So let's talk about in an economy that we start off with the data and where we are with the numbers. There's two parts to it. There's demand and there's supply. And demand would be measured primarily in real estate by interest rates and supply by inventory. Let's take a look at interest rates and now help us understand where the market is. What you'll see is this graph recently, this big drop at the end. We had rates over 7 and dropped to 6.8, and we ended the week last week at 6.68, about a 0.25% drop in rates. You didn't see that in the news. Now, a lot of the news is very focused on politics, but in terms of actual data, this is significant. Look at this drop in the rate. And it's also partially because of the holidays and people are off of work. But we hit lows of 6.15, and after going above 7, we're now back about halfway towards those lows again. And we're kind of below the midpoint of the last year or so. So overall, interest rates are in an area that they've been about for the last year that seem to drive plenty of buyers to the market and are getting better. We'll see what effect that has on people going forward as they maybe the holiday season slows down and people get a little more focused on real estate. Now, the inventory, which shows sellers, that continues to go down. And if you look at this graph, you might notice that this current year, whoa, what happened there? That this current year is higher than the prior years, but these are the pandemic years. And I would say these are not representative. You have to go back to 2019 for the first pre-pandemic year. You can see that the inventory, the number of homes for sale today, is way less than what I call the normal years. And it's during this unusual period that we're higher. But notice that, again, the end of the year, normally inventory drops. Sellers take their houses off the market. All business other than retail seems to slow down this time of year. So that's normal. The inventory is dropping. But just notice the inventory levels are, by any standard other than pandemic, historic lows. And as long as that's true, housing prices cannot drop dramatically because you don't have enough houses to have sellers competing to drop the price to make that happen. Now, locally in Los Angeles, and real estate is ultimately a very localized business, our market is slowing down a little bit. In fact, Altos Research, one of my favorite sources, they take all the statistics and summarize them. You'll notice the median list price has gone down, the price per square foot's gone down slightly, inventory has gone down, but that's seasonal. But most importantly, their overall ranking is a rating of 35, down 1 point from last week, 36. And you can see that if you follow this trend line, it was 37 back in August, and has been steadily moving down towards what I call equilibrium, which is probably at 30. So the market is still slightly a seller's market, but not the heavy seller's market that's been for the past couple of years. And so every process in real estate is going to be changing now as we have to do more to compete with buyers and compete for buyers on behalf of our sellers. So again, market slowing down in Los Angeles. I think our economy is underperforming the rest of the country, and we'll see. Time will tell over time. But for now, certainly, the market has gotten more challenging. Okay, so let's talk about the prediction market. In real estate, I would say there's the good, the bad, the ugly. There's real news. There's kind of slanted news, and there's just pure propaganda. So an example of good I would show is Realtor.com. Not because they're realtors, because the reality is realtors sold Realtor.com to Fox News back in 2014. The service is really an independent news service using the name Realtor because we sold it to them. But if you look at their predictions, it's mostly data. And what they do, I think they do a great job, is take the recent past, the most recent past, historical averages, and then project the future and put that in context. So for example, housing price appreciation. Last year went up 4%. They're predicting 3.7%. Mortgage rates last year were 6.7, 6.8%. They're projecting 6.3. So they show you the context in their projections. And when they analyze it, they're looking at the numbers and basing on data. I think they do a great job. I've linked to it down below. They cover housing prices, interest rates, the forecasted number of sales, housing affordability, overall sales forecasts, inventory forecasts, rental trends. I think they do a really, really good job of giving you data. And this is because the Realtor.com's clients are realtors. They're selling this information to realtors. They sell their leads to real estate agents, and they carry our name. The brand Realtor.com carries the realtor branding with it, and so they have to support that. They're not looking to destroy realtors. They're looking to work with their clients or realtors. So overall, I think they do a really good job. I know their predictions are not jolting, and I think anybody who makes those projections without any real data is just guessing anyhow. So again, I think they do a really good job. Definitely worth the read if you're a buyer or seller or a professional in this industry. Now, one that I would not recommend, so I would call that one the good. The one that I would call the bad, which is just because I think it's not really of value, is Redfin. Redfin is in the business of, I think, replacing realtors with their service. And so they want to make everybody uncertain as what to do and go turn to them. So their headline is pent-up demand. Pent-up demand will lead to more home sales. Now, this is just from the beginning a misunderstanding of the market. There are no buyers who want to buy and because they can't buy decide to become long-term renters. There are buyers who don't buy yet. They want to buy next year. They renew their rent, they renew their lease, or they move in a neighborhood. They might rent for a year hoping to buy the next year. But very rarely do they opt to rent as opposed to opting to buy. It's at most a temporary solution. Now, they have predictions, but again, they show very little data. They project forward, but not showing any other basis backwards, saying home prices will rise by 4%. Well, that's about the same as the Realtor.com. Mortgage rates will remain near 7%. Well, that's about where they are now. Those I showed you, they're close to 6.6, but okay, they're saying the rates will stay about where they are. That's not really a very big prediction. There'll be more home sales in 2025 than 24. 2024 was the worst home sales per capita in American history. It'd be hard to be worse than last year. It would have to be better, and most people are projecting it to be better by maybe 5% at most. So they're not projecting a complete turnaround. But to say that it won't be as bad as last year is not really much of a stretch, but okay. It'll be a renter's market. Now that's an interesting one. They're saying that because there's more building of rental units, renters will have more of an upper hand in negotiation. There will be more concessions, and rents won't increase as quickly. That's an interesting side note. I'm more in the purchase market. Fewer construction regulations will lead to more home building, if only in California. It'd be nice if there were less regulations. I do believe if there were less regulations, there'd be more housing. That's the central problem, and we'll see if that happens. That's a very bold prediction by Redfin. I don't know how they come across it. These are some of the ones I kind of laugh at a little bit, though. Wealthy people will pay less to buy and sell homes as commissions decline slightly. Now, it's interesting. They'll pay less, which sounds good. Where you want to click on that article and read it. And, of course, they have little clicks to their articles. But they're going to pay less, but the commissions will decline slightly. Why does that say wealthy people will pay slightly less? Because that's not as interesting an article. So their own conclusion undermines their title. And how much less? In fact, the recent statistics show no change. The only that I'm aware of scientific study on the data of real estate commissions since the National Association of Realtors settlement has been the commissions have not come down. The big complaint is they should go down. Everybody outside real estate hates realtors, is what the government have you believe. And so they had this whole sentiment to reduce commissions, and lo and behold, commissions don't go down at all. So here you're saying wealthy people, and not poor people, not middle class, wealthy people will pay less, but commission going slightly. Obviously, that's kind of a crazy one. The real estate industry will consolidate. Well, that's actually already happening. That's old news. We know that. I'll talk a little bit about an example of that. Here's two where Redfin shows really they're becoming more political, and part of their strategy is to suck up to their political allies. Climate risk will be priced into individual homes. So they're saying that each home now will have an effect based on climate risk, not based on, I live in California, based on earthquake, proximity to faults, proximity to fires, proximity to whatever. In Florida, I imagine the lower you are to sea level, there's different insurance and different risks and such. I'm not aware of home prices being valued based on that. The opposite. people still want to buy and be by the beach. Wealthy people buy mansions on the islands. People buying houses in Malibu. How Malibu prices are not going down despite the quote climate risk. So this is kind of hopeful or virtue signaling a part of Redfin. Hey, we're part of team, climate risk. But the reality is nobody is buying or selling based on climate risk. That's just not true. More people are still moving to Florida. That has not slowed down. The fact that a couple prominent hurricanes has not slowed down the movement into Florida at all. And here's another one. Mayors in blue cities will help reverse the flight from urban centers. Now, this is very hopeful. What they're trying to tell you is that what's gone on in my lifetime for 30, 40 years in Los Angeles is going to turn around now. And Los Angeles is going to undo the things that have pushed people out of the city of Los Angeles. Well, that's not true. Interesting factoid, Los Angeles City Council, the mayor, we call it a weak mayor system. The real power in LA City is the council members. There's 21 city council members. All 21 are Democrats. They voted unanimously to strengthen ridiculous rules against landlords. So in Los Angeles, there was no push to enforce the crime that has permeated our city. Yes, it's true. We did turn out the prosecutor, but at the end of the day, the police chief is still elected. The mayor still is the one who's going to push those issues. The city council pushes the laws. There is nothing in Los Angeles. I can't speak to San Francisco and Portland, these other cities, but LA, if anything, is pushing harder on the same things that have driven people out of the city. I don't see any reversal going on that I'm aware of. I'm glad to look at it. If you know of an example, show it to me. And last is, and again, this is part of the politics, Redfin and Zillow, I'm going to talk about in just a second, really want to be anti-homeowner. Gen Z will rewrite the American dream, cutting home ownership from the script. I don't believe that's true. I think the economy has made it much harder for Gen Z. I think that the propaganda of the press and culture is trying to sell them on not forming families, for example, which is what drives people to want to own a house. But in my experience in real estate, talking to buyers and sellers, talking to Gen Z, friends of my daughter and son-in-law, they want to own houses. They want to form families. Some do, some don't. But I do not believe that the American dream is going to die. In fact, the opposite. I'm going to say I think we'll see a resurgence of more people wanting to push houses. I think that's reflective of the election, that people stood up and said, we're not happy with the direction of more rentals and all these smaller properties located next to mass transit. I don't think that's really what people want. I think they rejected that in the last election overall. So again, I would call this the good, bad, the ugly. This would be the bad prediction. Now, if you want to know what the ugly one is, the worst, of course, is what I would call the worst force in real estate, the true force of evil, Zillow. And as I've said before and talked about, Zillow's a company that doesn't pay federal taxes. They're a venture capital company, and they have whole teams of people to make sure that they get the protections of being an American company, but they don't pay the price to do that. Well, they disrupt real estate agents like me who pay our fair share of federal taxes. They don't. And they've built a company worth $18 billion that doesn't pay federal taxes. Well, their predictions, I think, will show you really who they're about. So let's start from the beginning. They project that more buyers will come out ahead in a bumpy 2025. So bumpy already means they're trying to hedge their bet. But unpredictable mortgage rates cloud the picture. So they're saying, here's what we think is going to happen, but we're not sure because the picture is clouded. I mean, they want you to just click on their website. They should just say, our prediction for next year is a lot of you will click on our website. Because this is really just word salad. This is the kind of stuff that people hate. They don't make a prediction. Instead, they just tell you nonsense. Housing market activity will pick up. Well, again, since last year was like the all-time low per capita in American history, that's not exactly a bold prediction. This is what I love the most. Mortgage rates will fall, then rise, then fall again. If you look at the chart I showed you of mortgage rates, they have fallen, then risen, then fallen, then risen, then fallen, then risen, and fallen, like every year ever. So to project that is just meaningless dribble. And I guess maybe it's effective at getting people to click on Zillow's website. I don't understand that one. Here's one that's interesting. Markets will spread to the Southwest. I do think there's a fair amount of increased interest in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, as opposed to Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, that experience greater growth. Here's one that's nonsense that Zillow's trying to push. Again, part of the what I would call virtue signaling politically. Americans are embracing small home living. No, that is not true. Nobody ever said I want a small house. Has never been said before. Now, will people buy them because they have no alternative? Possibly, reluctantly, maybe as a starter. But this is because this is all we're building. In Los Angeles, this is all we're building, small homes. So your choice is to buy a competitive resale where there's not enough of them, or buy a new small home. Well, those are the choices. But nobody wants it. They're not embracing it. That's Zillow, I think, because again, remember, Zillow is diversifying out of home sales into mortgages and rentals. So they're fine. If every American rented property, they would love it, because then instead of just looking to buy houses every 5 or 7 years, you'd be looking to rent every renewal period of a year or two. They'd make more money that way. And Zillow is all about them making money and nothing to do with supporting America. Here's another one. This is, again, more I think, virtue signaling and wishful thinking on part of politicians. Pet friendliness would become non-negotiable for property managers. Now, I just spoke to a large property manager on Friday, and when COVID hit, for example, Los Angeles, the city allowed more dogs per unit and bigger dogs, overriding the landlord's right to restrict them in their own property. A landlord might say, hey, we can't safely have dogs larger than a certain amount, or dogs larger than a certain amount disrupt my other neighbors that don't have dogs. And the city of LA said, we don't care what you think, it's our property. We're going to tell you, you can have more dogs, you can have bigger dogs. And so landlords lost really the right to create nicer properties in their mind, and the city decided that. And so they're saying pet friendliness will become non-negotiable because there are going to be more people wanting pets. And again, I think this is a bad thing. I think that we want to encourage people to form families. There's so many people who, and I don't want to restore the controversy of the election of cat ladies, but I don't think that we want to encourage the trade-off of pets instead of larger homes that can accommodate children. I think we want to have more families formed. And I think if we focus on creating more properties for pets where people don't have children or families, I don't think that's overall a good thing. Again, we had a dog in my house last 11 years. Unfortunately, my wife had to put our dog down last week. I'm not saying people shouldn't have the right to have pets. What I am saying, though, is as a housing policy, it should encourage family formation, should encourage children, should encourage growth, not, I think, pets as an alternative. I just don't think it's really the right solution. And again, I think Zillow does. I think that's part of Zillow's, in my mind, even a part of Zillow, remember, they're not even an American company. The largest shareholder is an Australian company, Caledonia, who's Australian, right? They're not even an American company. When you say they don't support American values, that's because they're not owned by Americans. They're owned by an Australian company, and they're owned by BlackRock, talk about forces of evil, Fidelity, and JP Morgan. These are just investment banking companies. They're not even people who are committed to American way of life. These are just companies that would finance Chinese slave labor if they can make a profit on it. And Caledonia is not even an American company. So again, when we say they don't support American values, let's not be surprised. These are not Americans who are owning these companies. These are just companies who are, have other priorities. Okay, in the news, as we kind of continue down the page, big change. I mentioned one of the predictions was consolidation of real estate. Compass, which is another venture capital company, never paid any federal taxes. Doesn't seem like it's going to be for a while. It's worth billions of dollars. They're now buying companies with their stock. And now they bought out Christie's International and at Properties, the 8th largest real estate company in the country. And so we have this consolidation going on. One of the effects of the NAR settlement is these other companies are financially tapped. Real estate has been down anyhow by 30-40%. So the real estate industry is in a depression. And so here you have these companies who have stock. They can buy companies with it. And I don't think that's a good thing. I just don't think consolidation, using stock that has never paid federal taxes, to me seems to be inherently bad for the American economy, for the majority of Americans. But that's what's going on in our market today. So there you go. Another interesting piece of news that kind of overlaps, if you've been following the story of Elon Musk and Doge, you might think, well, how's that going to affect real estate? Well, one of the departments that Elon Musk called for eliminating was the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, or CFPB. This was a very controversial bureau that was founded 10 years ago or so, 2007-8. And it has really restricted lending and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. It's just another organization that companies have to deal with and put out regulations. More importantly, though, they're not accountable to Congress. This is just an organization that's independent. And again, I don't think our solutions to our real estate problems are more government. I mean, this organization has been around for 11 years. Like everything else in real estate, things have gotten worse, not better. So clearly they have not really helped the matter much. And Elon Musk is saying, among other things, if you can't justify good to American people, we should get rid of them. And I agree. They're one of many organizations I think would be good to get rid of. Also, kind of an interesting article I saw in California Matters. California's housing crisis has gotten worse, not better, over the last 30 years. That's my experience. In 30 years, it's just gotten worse and worse. And a couple of the key findings down below. Since 1990, California has added 3.6 million homes, but 9.4 million residents. So we've not had our housing stock keep up with the residents. I think those numbers are very low. I don't think it counts illegal immigrants. I think those are just counting legal residents, which makes it worse. Also, California has the nation's second lowest rate of home ownership. So whereas the dream used to be move to California, buy a small home, over time you pay it off and have a nice retirement, that's becoming out of the reach for more and more people. And by comparison, California ranks 49 out of 50 of states able to help their residents buy property. So what do you think? Real estate predictions for next year. Is it going to be a better market, worse market? Values up, values down, mortgages up? Am I too harsh on Zillow? Am I too harsh on Redfin? Let me know what your thoughts are. At Bill Goes Probate, BillGoesProbate.com is my website. As always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.